Hello everyone, this is Serious Trivia. Welcome to the first ever building guide for Total War Warhammer 3, as we're going to be taking a look at how to build the Grand Bastion gates today. And we'll be using the Snake Gate as our example, since it's easy to access in the early part of the campaign, and we just simply colonized it to fix it up, to see the building from the grounds up when we don't even have a bastion here. This is a ruin, and we'll talk about everything that you got to consider when building out these three gate passes: the Snake Gate, the Dragon Gate, and the Turtle Gate, which is spread across the wall. They're exactly the same in terms of their building options, and the first thing we're going to understand is that they are a province by themselves. So it extends a little bit out into the Chaos Waste and comes out a little bit inside of Grand Cathay. And because they are a single province, you can have a commandment right away. And there are four options here. And my favorite one early on has to be the Bastion Reinforced. You pick up 25 points of growth to help you gain your surplus populations, so you can construct your buildings quickly, level up your settlement, and you get minus 20% cost for all constructions in this province-wide. And the buildings are pretty pricey, so it's nice to get 20% here, and it's very easy to get 20% from balancing your harmony, which is a key point in playing as Grand Cathay, so definitely work on that. If you need help, there is a harmony guide on the channel as well, but overall that's a default 40% savings on all your buildings in the Great Bastions. If you want to save more and you're playing as Mao Ying, she does have a skill that becomes available once you hit rank 12, because you have to unlock Aurora of Majesty to pick up Reinforced Bastion, which will reduce it by another 40%. So you'll be running at 80% discount quite easily for Great Bastion buildings if you want to go that route. You don't have to take this. I typically skip it because I prefer to make Mao Ying a stronger legendary lord, but if you want to get your Great Bastion up to speed, this is definitely an option. I typically am pretty careful with economic buildup, so my economy is usually pretty healthy, and money is not usually what holds me back from upgrading these Great Bastion gates. Usually it's just the surplus population I'm waiting for to get it to tier up. So speaking of that, let's first go into the building browser. If we take a look here, we have our capital, which is just the Bastion gatehouse upgraded all the way. And we have military buildings divided by basic and advanced. There's two in each. And the main difference here versus the regular buildings you have in every settlement is we're missing a few that deals with heroes. So we don't have access to the Alchemist and the Astromancer, which is the lines for Sky Junk, as well as the line for Terracotta Sentinel, because the Astromancer is on that line for the Sentinel and the Alchemist is on that line for the Sky Junk. Those are actually very good buildings for your other main settlements, but here it's kind of different because we actually get a Terracotta Sentinel recruitment once we hit rank 4, which is faster than most major settlement, which requires the building once you hit rank 5. So this is actually a great place to recruit Terracotta Sentinels without wasting a building slot in other cities. And this is something that you naturally want to upgrade to that point, so it doesn't really get in the way. Now, aside from that, we have 4 defense buildings, and this is going to be your main choices here. At most, you have 3 slots to pick from. And from these buildings, all of them considered, my favorite building has to be the Bastion Water Station chain here. Now at the beginning, we get 20 point of growth, 4% casualty replenishment for local armies, so anyone in that province will get a bit extra replenishment. Doesn't seem crazy, but I think this building chain here is probably the best designed building chain I have seen in Total War games for a long time, because you want growth, right, in the early stages, because you want to build your settlement up as quickly as possible by giving it surplus population. So this naturally is a great choice. Replenishment helps, and then we upgrade that, and then we upgrade that, and then we upgrade that. Everything looks very normal, and then we get the 5th one. Usually, once you hit tier 5, you have to have a tier 5 settlement, which means you no longer need population surplus, and usually growth becomes a pointless building. So usually for most growth buildings at this point, you delete them, because you never need tier 5 once you hit tier 5. But here, it changes the growth to all province faction wide. So that's just a very neat design, and makes this a very valuable building, because If you have all 3 gates, it means your entire faction will enjoy 30 point of growth faction-wide, helps you build out everywhere else. And you get the 10% casualty replenishment rate increase. So this chain here is something that I build in every single gate, and I think that's a must-have. The first thing you should go for. Helps you level up your settlement quicker. You get better garrison troops. You get more bonuses from the main building. As you can see, recruitment of the peasant units early on, minus 30% attrition when under siege, 20 point of growth as well. Defensive supplies when you are getting siege attack, 1,000 points. And you get money. This is the only money generating building for the gates. 100 for tier 1, 150 for tier 2. You can see the supply going up, the growth going up, the garrison increasing as well as there's the discoverability of an undercity here by the Skavens. And then once we hit tier 3, 200 in terms of income, everything just goes up slightly. And then at tier 4, 300. And then finally at tier 5, we get a lot of different bonuses. You're rewarded for maxing out your gate. Wuxing Compass cooldown, which is usually 9 turns, I believe, is going to be reduced by 1. Allows you more flexibility to change directions on the fly, because 9 turns is a little bit too long since you end up getting 2 points per turn, so your usual reserve meter will build up quite quickly. And if you want to just maintain passive bonuses between different types of directions, then you want to switch it before 9 turns. So having -1 on each of your gate helps you out quite a bit. There's also cooldown reduction on the tech tree. I think you can get it down to about 5 turns per switch, which is pretty nice. Income generated at 400, diplomatic relations with other Cathay factions +2. It's very small, but it does help in case you're trying to annex your stubborn brother, because he's usually the hardest one because he's a legendary lord. Even with 1 territory, he doesn't really want to confederate with you, but it's a nice bonus to have. The defense supply, 2,500. You can put up 5 towers with that at the beginning. Growth of 50 becomes useless here. So this is part of design that becomes weird because once you hit this tier, you never need growth. So I wish they changed that as well to something like this, because this is just wonderful. And you get a bunch of units as well. The garrison here is fairly strong. I think the garrison can hold its own. You get a Sky Junk, you get a Terracotta Sentinel here at tier 5. Just a bunch of really good units, 3 Celestial Dragon Guards, 2 Celestial Dragon Crossbowmen, a bunch of Jade Warriors on top of that. So it's just a very strong garrison that can hold its own, and the attrition when under siege of 50% definitely helps. So that takes our 2 building slot, the main one and our growth one. What about the other 2? Well, if we take a look at the other 3 defense options, we have an artisan line that gives us more supplies at the start of the siege, as well as per turn when under siege, and ammunition boost when we're under a siege defense battle. I don't actually like this one. First, the AI very rarely challenge you to a defensive siege battle. They like to siege you, but they don't like to actually fight you. And you have to sally out quite often. And once you are strong enough, you might not even give AI the chance to ever siege you again. You can launch offensive attacks into the Chaos Waste, and this just becomes a bit pointless. The ammo bonus when under defensive siege, if you never fight a defensive siege or rarely fight a defensive siege, then the 100% ammo really means nothing. That goes the same for defensive supplies. So I usually stay away from this line. It just feels very situational, and unless you're playing on easier difficulty where the enemy likes to challenge themselves in suicide, I feel like it's rather pointless. Then for the fortification line here, you get upkeep discount for local armies standing in this province. The province is quite small, and we get 40% campaign line of sight. And if we move up, both bonuses will just increase until we get 65% upkeep discount and plus 100% campaign line of sight. It's decent because you can keep a full stack of army in this province, and there are ways you can utilize this. So I'm not going to dismiss this building entirely, but I would stay away from this as well. Because of how good the garrison is, you might not want to waste an army here. Every army has a supply line cost. It will make your entire faction's armies more expensive by 4% on legendary difficulty, so you don't have the luxury of putting out so many armies. Therefore, sometimes you probably just have 1 army running around the 3 gates, keeping things in check, or maybe in the later stages of the game, you might have full control of the Chaos Wasteland despite the bad climate, is you don't really have to worry about the gates very much. And you don't have to keep an army in these gates, therefore the 65% upkeep really doesn't really help you. And if you have control of the Chaos Wasteland, why would you need Campaign Line of Sight? So that leaves us with the final option here, the Sanctum. And this one's actually quite good. So it will reduce the attrition you suffer from being in the Chaos Waste because of unsuitable climate by 30% in the beginning, recruitment cost discount 20%, and increased rank of units recruited here. And if we move this all the way up, you can see the bonuses goes to 90% attrition casualty reduction from Chaos Waste, 65% recruitment cost discount for local armies, and plus 5 rank, which is pretty massive. This is the building I like to build second. So growth into attrition reduction, recruitment cost reduction, and increased rank. And that would actually help us to turn each of these gates into a recruitment site to save some building space in our main settlements that can help us make money. And there are plenty of units we can recruit here. We already mentioned the Terracotta Sentinel at tier 4, which is faster than every single settlement which require tier 5 to recruit Terracotta Sentinels. You can get them with a plus 5 rank bonus and recruit them at a 65% discount in any of the 3 gates once you hit tier 5 to get this building and to have access to Terracotta Sentinel. And because that leaves us with 1 slot left open, you can choose which type of unit you want to recruit at which gate. So typically, I would go for things that's higher than tier 3 because you can keep your Jade Warrior recruitment at a minor settlement that you have no use for and just have top tier units right away. In these 5-tier settlements, you don't have many of those because they're usually provincial capitals. We can go for Longma for a cavalry build out. We can go for the Celestial Dragon Guard as well as the Celestial Dragon Crossbowmen here. And for the 3rd gate, we can go for the Fire Rain Rockets, which is a tier 4 building, but it is still higher than tier 3, so we can't get it in any of the minor settlements. So in essence, turn your 3 gates into 3 recruitment sites, 1 for Longma, 1 for Fire Rain Rocket, and 1 for the Celestial Dragon units. And that way, you can get 65% recruitment cost discount and plus 5 rank on all of them when you do recruit them. And the good thing is, the gates are close enough to each other that you can sort of run your unit around. So army goes from here, recruit a couple, 1 turn run over here, recruit a couple, 1 turn run over here, recruit a couple. You do need some movement bonus to make it in 1 turn, because it's actually slightly longer than 1 turn, but it's not too difficult to get an army ready that way. So with that said, we can look at some of the other commandments, because in the late game, once you have everything constructed, you don't need this one anymore. So what do you want to change it to? Well, this is a good one. The Bastion Patrolled will reduce the threat level, that's gained over here, by 1% with each of your gates. So at most, minus 3%. The minimum rate of the threat level increase is 8% here. You can see it on top. That means you can reduce it to 5% per turn. Each army you crush that's outside is going to reduce your amount by 20%, and that's usually what keeps your rate low and safe. So launching offensive attacks once you do have a sizable army to guard the gate is a great option to protect yourself, and that's something you would definitely want to consider. So if you do have a stable opportunity to farm those enemies, then this is definitely something you don't need. But if you don't and just want to passively hold on for 20 turns essentially, because it's 5% before you have to deal with a big invasion, then this is a good way to go. In addition, you can boost the experience of armies standing here. This is if you are actually having an army in the area. 200 point is decent, but not really going to be game changing. Finally, you can increase the casualty replenishment rate. This one might actually be useful if you are trying to do something where you're setting up an ambush party outside of the gates. Because of the way the province set up, the attrition bonus is only going to be applied here, right? 90% less attrition if you stand in this Chaos Waste. If you're new to the game, different climates will have different effects on units. So as a human faction, we're not suitable to live in the chaotic wasteland. And you can see all the debuff applied to you. And if you stand in these areas, you will suffer attrition. And that's why we have that attrition protection of 90% here. So setting up an ambush party here is actually super good because enemies like to attack the gates. They're programmed to attack the gates. And if you protect it from attrition, you can call on your garrison force to come out as reinforcement and help you fight by setting up an ambush right here, and that way your gate is not always under siege, and that's super annoying, forcing you to sally out all the time. This is a good defensive measure. And if you worry about that final 10%, every single lord has the skill at the bottom row here that will give you the attrition protection. All you need is 1 point in reassuring presence, and they will have 100% attrition protection in the chaos waste. And that's actually pretty fitting because you need 4 points to get irrepressible. If you're trying to get lightning strike, for example, you definitely need to get that. Therefore, you can put 1 point here, and you can split your other points in other categories. I think maybe people like recruitment cost discount. That's going to really increase the recruitment cost discount here to 80%. And if you're just keeping a simple army in ambush mode, they can actually be a recruitment station for your other armies as the other lord runs around, because you can just run there, not recruit, have someone recruit it for you, and then pass on the unit for you with 80% discount. So you can have sort of a recruitment lord, a simple lord magistrate would do, that has, 80% recruitment discount because of the 65 from the gates plus the 15 here. And you could potentially get others from tech and other bonuses faction-wide, and then pick up a simple 10% attrition, and then get on with your lightning strike and so forth as sort of a northern defense force. But that's pretty much how you want to build your Bastion gates. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this guide, and we'll come back with other building guides. Now, most of the settlement building are pretty easy to discuss, so we'll probably do them together. In essence, the only special buildings we need to talk about is landmark buildings and resource buildings. But aside from that, we'll have a template for most of the other build. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this guide, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!